Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this. I'm the Chall, and today Chall chats football in a brand new episode of Football League Weekly, bringing you weekly news and updates from the English Football League Championship, League One and League Two. Coming up in this week's Football League Weekly edition, Portsmouth and two other Championship clubs could be closing in on a Palace young winger. Exeter are about to close in on the signing of a goalkeeper on a season-long loan. We also have Wrexham confirming a deal for one of their returning loanees. And is this manager, Cameron Toshack, coming to Newport County? Before we get into today's video, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell so you never miss another YouTube video. We are on the road to 3,000 subscribers and 500,000 views, so let's get there as soon as possible, please. Go and subscribe to the channel. The page itself is on your screen. So for now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get straight into this and let's discuss the latest in this edition of Football League Weekly. So the idea behind this series is that we will pick out a few stories up and down the EFL each week. So we're going to kick off with the Championship and with Portsmouth. League One champions Portsmouth are reportedly targeting Jesurun Rak-Sakyi, but he is also wanted by Championship sides Luton, Town and Blackburn Rovers, according to reports. The newly promoted second-tier side admitted earlier in the window they were unlikely to be able to succeed in their efforts to sign the talented 21-year-old, with numerous Championship sides expected to be interested in a loan deal from Crystal Palace. So for those of you who don't know much about Jesurun Rak-Sakyi, here's a little bit about how I would describe him as a player. He's direct, he's full of pace, technically fluent, he's tricky in terms of his footwork on the ball. He's featured in 6 Premier League appearances this past season. However, this is the biggest hindrance with Rak-Sakyi going into the new season. He suffered a hamstring injury for a big portion of the season, as well as a separate hamstring problem which hindered his return for a little while from the Palace matchday squad, either at academy level or on the bench at first team level. And it's very, very clear that Oliver Glasner does rate Jesurun Rak-Sakyi, but it's just a case now of what's next for his development as he returns to pre-season and trying to shake off those hamstring problems from the previous campaign just gone. So what I've done for this particular video about Jesurun Rak-Sakyi is I've taken the 3 reporter clubs that are set to be in for Jesurun Rak-Sakyi: Portsmouth, Luton and Blackburn Rovers, and I've done a bit of analysis into their formations from the past campaign, the way the manager plays, the style of football, and I've also looked at the competition in their position, and I've also analysed what move out of those 3 clubs specifically could be the best for Rak-Sakyi's career and Palace's development of the player moving forward. So we kick off with Luton Town. Now, I've come to the conclusion that he would work best as a right winger in a 3-4-3 or as either the striker or right attacking midfielder in Rob Edwards' 3-4-2-1. Now, game time wise, it's 50-50. Just think, he's coming back from an injury, and you look at the 2 players ahead of him in that attacking midfield role in the 3-4-2-1, the wingers that are in that club right now. I know they've got rid of Fred Onyedinma, but you've still got Ogbene there. You've still got the experience of Andres Townsend in there, amongst a couple of others. So the main ones here are Ogbene and Townsend, and does Rak-Sakyi get ahead of those 2 players? In my opinion, if I'm being brutally honest, because Rak-Sakyi is coming back from that injury, and because Rob Edwards, I know, will have a lot of faith and trust in Ogbene and Townsend, and potentially someone, if they decide to bring in someone in that position, I don't think Luton's the best move for Rak-Sakyi's development. He can be adaptable as a left winger if need be, but again, it all depends on formation. The primary formation that Rob Edwards go with, I think he sticks with the 3-4-2-1. Also, by the way, congratulations to Rob Edwards on his brand new contract. Well deserved. He is probably Luton's best manager for a while. And I would say that Rob Edwards is the right man to try and take them back to the Premier League. I would personally say that. They did struggle, but there was results in that Premier League season where I feel like they could have won it on a different day if certain things went their way or if certain chances went their way. I felt Luton could have stayed up. I think especially with the points deductions to both Everton and Nottingham Forest respectively, I think Luton had a real chance of staying up. But it just, petered out at the end. It just didn't end up happening. But I think Luton's probably the best, in my opinion, of the three to go back up. And, everyone talks about Sheffield United's takeover, and everyone talks about the potential of Ruud van Nistelrooy going to Burnley. I feel like Rob Edwards and Luton are in the best possible position to jump back into the Premier League, because I think they've kept, I wouldn't say the most of that squad, but I say near enough a majority of that squad from the previous campaign. And they're going to add to that with a few new signings to bring that squad number up and to bring that squad to a title-winning standard. And I think Luton have a good chance of winning the league this year. So does Rak-Sakyi fit in that? I personally don't think he does. I think for his development, I think he needs more game time than I think he's going to get at Luton. I do trust Rob Edwards, but I think with Ogbene and Townsend ahead of him, and I think with potential youth academy players that could be promoted at certain points, I think with potential signs that could happen as well, I don't think Rak-Sakyi is the best player for Luton Town in terms of their movement and recruitment in the transfer window. Now we move on to Blackburn Rovers under John Eustace, his first full campaign. Just to give you a bit of context on the previous campaign, Blackburn just survived on the final day mathematically. Obviously, John Dahl Thomason was replaced a little bit earlier than that by John Eustace, of course, the man who was famously sacked by Birmingham City and replaced with Wayne Rooney. That didn't end up working. They brought in Gary Rowett to take charge to the end of the season at the very least. And then, of course, we know they've got a new man to take them for the new season, but they did end up getting relegated, Birmingham. Obviously, Birmingham, it wasn't a great season for them. Obviously, Tony Mowbray being in there, him having to give up the job. Then, of course, we had, obviously, we had John Eustace, we had Wayne Rooney. We knew we had, obviously, the temporary management, we had the temporary sort of stewardship from Gary Rowett to take them to the end of the season. It didn't end up working out. And now, of course, we've got Chris Davis, of course, the ex-Tottenham assistant manager to Ange Postecoglou. So you've got someone there. You've got a real opportunity there for someone like Chris Davis to take Birmingham forward. But going back to Blackburn, John Eustace is now back in management at Blackburn, taking over from John Dahl Thomason. Blackburn didn't have a great season last season, just survived, like I said, mathematically on the final day of the championship campaign mathematically. And Blackburn really need to pick themselves back up. Now, does Jesurun Rak-Sakyi fit in John Eustace's plans? Well, he would fit best as the right winger in a 4-2-3-1 or as the striker in a partnership in the 3-4-1-2, if we're looking at two primary formations used by John Eustace at Blackburn during that time this past season. Again, game time is a questionable one for me. When you look at some of the players in there, you kind of look and you think, well, they could. I mean, one thing that does excite me about Blackburn Rovers, and why I actually think it's a better option than Luton, I feel like a partnership between him and Tyrese Dolan, left or right, wherever you want to put them. I think Rak-Sakyi probably on the right. I'd go with Dolan on the left in that partnership. I think that's a very quick, efficient, driven-based partnership, full of energy, full of pace, full of drive. You've got the opportunity to cut inside. You've got the wing play down the channels. You've got the ability to improve on the crossing as well. So you've got a quick, efficient, young partnership potentially in Dolan and Rak-Sakyi. But again, game time for me over certain other players is questionable. You've got quite a few wingers already in that squad for next season for Blackburn. Just depends on the rest of the movements. Obviously, Dylan Markindale, again, where does he fit in the plans for next season? Ryan Hedges, again, another man. So you've got question marks over that position for Blackburn. They could look at someone else. They may look at someone else. You just never know. I mean, if those of you who are Blackburn fans want to know exactly what kind of wingers you're looking, well, basically the wingers you've got for next season so far, you would probably say you've got Arne Sigurdsson on the left. Of course, his contract runs out next summer. You've got Aidan Doherty, who's been brought in as an 18-year-old from Linfield. He's a talented young player. You've got a talented young teenager there. Blackburn fans, don't you worry about that. Obviously, his contract's until 2027. And then on the right, you've got Dolan, you've got Ryan Hedges, and you've got Dylan Markindale. Now, if you look at the game time for those wingers, Markindale, he was obviously loaned out the previous campaign before last, obviously 22-23 at Aberdeen. In the Championship during this season, he made 21 appearances with 1 goal, 15% of those in the starting 11. He made 2 appearances in the Premier League 2 squad, the Academy squad, with 3 goals and an assist, 100% starting. He made 4 appearances in the EFL Cup with 2 goals, 2 appearances in the FA Cup, his EFL Cup appearances, 75% starting 11. Then you go with the experienced Ryan Hedges, and he made 17 Championship appearances this season, 28% in the starting 11 with 2 goals and 3 assists, as well as that 1 appearance in the EFL Cup with 2 assists to his name. So you look at the wingers you've got available already, and you think, if you loan out Markanday again, you've got 2 right wingers and 1 left winger. So you'd say that Blackburn would probably focus on a winger during this transfer window. Does Rak-Sakyi fit the bill? I think there's potential for him to. I think him and Dolan as a partnership would be absolutely unreal. And then you've got Sigurdsson and you've got Hedges, maybe Markanday, depending on his situation. But I think you've then got 4 wingers there. So I think Blackburn's a decent option for Rak-Sakyi. And I would definitely rate this if it happened. Finally, we go to the League One champions, Portsmouth. And for me, in my opinion, even though Portsmouth might be unlikely reportedly to get his man, I think this is the best of the 3. And here's why. A right winger in a 4-2-3-1 under Jose Mourinho, and a 3-4-3 and a 4-3-3. So you've got 3 formations adaptable there as a right winger. Or he becomes a striker or right attacking midfielder in a 3-4-2-1. Now, if you look at Portsmouth's winger situation for this upcoming season, you've got 1 out-and-out right winger according to Transfer Market, and that is Gavin White. Of course, Paddy Lane and Anthony Scully are left wingers out-and-out usually. Now, he's highly likely to get more game time, and for me, I think Mourinho's style of play fits Rak-Sakyi a lot more. You know, you get a direct winger, you get him on 1v1s, you get him direct against his man, you get him running down the channels, you've got an opportunity to really work the ball into some nice areas under that Mourinho style of football that won League One last season. And for me, I think Rak-Sakyi's adaptability to go either side, and I think his ability to potentially adapt as a right attacking midfielder in that 3 at the back formation, as a striker as well. Obviously, his ability to work 3 different formations as a traditional out-and-out right winger, I think is another big plus. And I think it gives the experienced Gavin White a bit of competition as well. I generally believe there's some competition there in that position. So I would seriously look at this, and I would seriously think this would be a decent deal, So I think Portsmouth, for me, is the best option. If you were to go with the more likely out of the 3, I'd go with either Pompey or Blackburn. I think Portsmouth's more unlikely, given the fact that other Championship clubs are looking for him. However, do not rule out Portsmouth. Do not rule out. And if I were Portsmouth's recruitment team, I would not be ruling this deal out if you are intending to rule this deal out. Because if you give him the right offer and if you give someone the right potential plan for development, they will choose the right plan for them. And it's up to the player and the parent club. And if they think Portsmouth's the right development, which I think on paper out of the 3, I think Portsmouth's the right development. So they would say yes to that. So I would say Portsmouth or Blackburn is probably the best possible destination out of those 3 clubs. But of course, we know that other Championship clubs will probably come knocking on Palace's door for looking at Jesurun Rak-Sakyi. But my personal suggestion out of those 3 clubs is either Blackburn alongside a Dolan partnership or in that Pompey side competing with Gavin White. Next up, we go to League One and we start with Exeter City in our double League One header storyline headline. Exeter City. It is decided or reportedly decided that they are closing in on the signing of goalkeeper Joe Whitworth from Crystal Palace. The League One side are reportedly closing in on a deal to sign the 20-year-old on a season-long loan as they look to prepare for another season in the 3rd tier. Now, this is according to journalist Alan Nixon. So before we look at Exeter's goalkeeping situation, I wanted to share my previous thoughts when I first reported on Joe Whitworth being linked to Doncaster Rovers as well as Shrewsbury Town about this player and what he's about. So take it away, old Chall. At just 19 years old and 15 days old, he became the 5th youngest goalkeeper in the club's history. Followed up his Brighton appearance by starting against Arsenal in the Premier League. He's a goalkeeper in the modern mould with excellent distribution skills as well as shot-stopping ability, a regular within England youth sides. So that ticks a lot of boxes already. Excellent distribution. His shot stopping, obviously, is very, very important. A modern mould goalkeeper, so a sweeper keeper pretty much, which is very, very important. So here's some stuff on the club's website about Joe Whitworth. He was a regular at Selhurst Park as a child, despite an early youth career at ASU Wimbledon's under-13s, the oldest of three goalkeeping brothers, which is very intriguing. His form in the 2020-21 season was recognised by Sean Derry, who was among the substitutes on the 23 side. Fixtures at Selhurst Park, he received international calls for England under-17s and under-18s. He made 20 appearances for the under-18s in 2021, keeping 6 clean sheets, narrowly missing out on the South title of the under-18s Premier League on goal difference. He became the first choice goalkeeper from the under-23s a couple of seasons ago, making 23 appearances in the Premier League 2 Division 1 and keeping 3 clean sheets. So from old Chall there, you can clearly tell he is a decent young player. Now, what about the goalkeepers that Exeter City currently have amongst their ranks? They currently have 19-year-old Harry Lee, 15 National League South appearances on loan, of course, with Weston-super-Mare, with 23 goals conceded and 5 clean sheets. They also made 5 appearances on loan at Salisbury during that campaign as well. You've also got Sean McDonald, 27 years old, of course, brought in 2 EFL trophy appearances with 5 goals conceded and 1 clean sheet. So it's very, very clear, with no disrespect intended to both Harry Lee and Sean McDonald, that Joe Whitworth is going to be Exeter's number 1 for the next season. They made some success with Sinisalo from Aston Villa on loan, and I think Whitworth will be no different. For me, I kind of see Joe Whitworth as a bit like a Carl Rushworth at Lincoln when he was there back in a season or two ago. I kind of relate the two together in terms of they're both tall keepers, they're both really good attacking-based goalkeepers, and I think that Whitworth and Rushworth are both excellent young shot stoppers as well. So for me, I see a lot of Joe Whitworth and Carl Rushworth, and I think that Exeter's got themselves a really good keeper, a very highly rated goalkeeper. In my opinion, when I look at Palace Academy, you've got 2 highly rated academy goalkeepers that are approaching that first team or senior football level. There's 2 that stick in my mind already: Joe Whitworth and Owen Goodman. We don't know what's happening with Owen Goodman yet. We don't know if it's going to be another loan deal. It might be to League One or League Two. But Joe Whitworth, for me, I think is the one that's approaching first team level the most out of the 2, for me. And I feel like Exeter's the right move. I think Exeter's the right move because I think Exeter's a really good run club, a really good family run club, a family club. And for me, I think that Exeter's the right destination in terms of he will be the number 1 keeper. He will get the most game time during the campaign. And it's up to him now to really show what he's capable of and what he can do in that number 1 spot. But no disrespect to Harry or Sean, but I think that Joe Whitworth gets that number 1 shirt at Exeter. And once the deal gets confirmed, we'll be sure to share it on our social media platforms. Next up, we go to Wrexham for our second piece of League One news. And of course, they announced in the past week that they have re-signed goalkeeper Arthur Okonkwo on a permanent deal after being released from Arsenal on an initial 3-year contract. The 22-year-old goalkeeper spent last season on loan with Wrexham as the club won promotion from League One for the first time of asking, as well as being named in the League Two team of the season and became the club's first signing of the summer transfer window. So why does this move make sense? Well, it's very, very clear. He's been there before. He knows the club. He's an efficient shot stopper. He's athletic. He's commanding. And look at the stats. 14 clean sheets in 36 appearances with 30 goals conceded as Wrexham were promoted in second place. I don't think there was any other choice other than Arthur Okonkwo. I don't think there was any other choice besides that. For me, I think that Arthur is the right choice for Wrexham. I think Wrexham's the right choice for Arthur. I think his release from Arsenal, in my opinion, came as no surprise. I don't think Arsenal needed him, especially since they're looking at now signing Karl Hein on a brand new contract, probably to be the third choice or loaned out to Championship League One level or similar or equivalent across Europe. So I would say that Karl Hein's potential third choice. Ramsdale's going nowhere. We know that David Raya's not going anywhere anyway. So Okonkwo had to bite the dust. And I think that Wrexham's definitely the right move. You could see how much he loves the club. You could see how much the club's fans love him. And it kind of just felt right. And I think we knew when Wrexham were getting promoted, it was highly likely that he was going to move there regardless. So I think that Wrexham getting a Okonkwo is very dangerous for League One. I do think he's a very underrated goalkeeper. I think he was one of the top keepers last season in League Two. Obviously, statistically, Bench Hinchcliffe was, in my opinion, the best keeper. Alex Bass was up there as well. So for me, I think that Arthur Okonkwo was definitely in that top three, top five keepers from last season in League Two. He was definitely amongst the best, alongside the likes of Bass and Hinchcliffe. So for me, I think that Okonkwo going back to Wrexham on a permanent basis was the right deal for Wrexham. It's the right deal for Okonkwo, and I really hope he thrives at the racecourse. I really hope he does well. And I've got every faith he'll do well. I don't think Wrexham will be in much trouble this season. I'll be perfectly honest with you. And, and a lot of people have had their problems with Wrexham. I know a lot of rival fans have had their banter and their barges with Wrexham. But let's be brutally and seriously honest with our neutral head, shall we? Wrexham in League One could be dangerous. I'm not going to say they're going to challenge for the league title again. But what I am saying about Wrexham is they've got the capability to, at the very least, finish mid-table. And that's, in my opinion, no qualms about it. I think they're at the minimum mid-table League One. And that's being, I think, generous. I think mid-table League One is a generous minimum for Wrexham. But we know Wrexham's ambitions at the board level with Ryan Reynolds and Bob Lakalani and the whole entire board at Wrexham. They'll want to try and go for it as much as they can this season. So good luck to him, and we'll see how he does in Wrexham colours permanently. But let's end this week's edition of Football League Weekly with Newport County and a potential managerial candidate. Former Leeds United coach Cameron Toshack has emerged as a potential candidate for the position of manager of League Two Newport County, according to reports. The Welsh side recently parted company with Graham Coughlin after just 2 years in the job, with Chairman Hugh Jenkins citing a change in direction for their next appointment. So, who is Cameron Toshack? He previously worked at the Swansea City Academy from under 18 to under 23 level. He was also manager of Paphos FC in Cyprus, and he was also the assistant at the Macedonian national squad. Now, in terms of his honours, it goes like this with the Swansea City Academy. He's won the FAW Welsh Youth Cup in 2014 and 2015, the Professional Development League 2 in 2015 as well. He won 2 trophies in 2017 with the Premier League 2 Division 2 and the Premier League Cup. He was also the runner-up in that Premier League Cup the following year in 2018. Now, he also left Paphos FC in October 2020, having claimed the highest win percentage in the club's history. So, what does a Toshack football side look like? Well, it is very data-driven, it's attacking possession-based football, adaptable against top and bottom teams in the table. He can play long balls and deep retention play against higher teams, whilst playing the counter-pressing, high-retention football against teams further down the table. And I think the data on screen absolutely shows that. And shout out to Analytics FC for the graphics used in this particular piece of the video. Now, in terms of formations, you'd be switching from Newport's old 3-5-2 mainly back to the 4-2-3-1, but he's adaptable with other formations, including the 4-3-3, the 4-4-2, the 4-3-1-2, and the 4-1-4-1, which has also been used. Now then, let's look at Newport's squad and actually look at what a Newport squad would look like under Cameron Toshack in the 4-2-3-1 majority formation choice. So, this is what we would be looking at in terms of the majority formation. So, as you can see, 4-2-3-1. You've got, and this is, by the way, using Transfer Market's next season squad option for the club. So you've got Nick Townsend in goal. You've got McLaughlin as a right back. You've got Jameson and Sanker in one side of the centre back partnership. You've got Clark and Sebery on the left-hand side of the partnership. You've got no left back, so that's potentially an area there. It's definitely an area there, I would say. You've got Morris and Wildig. Now, the one thing I would note, and this is another thing I picked up on Analytics FC, is that the club would need, in my opinion, a deep-lying playmaker. I'll go into that a bit more when I'm looking at players that I think Newport need in the window if they were to appoint Cameron Toshack as manager, or head coach. But I would say a deep-lying playmaker, and I'll explain why in a moment. But you've got Morris and you've got Wildig in the midfield there. You've got Norris as the attacking midfielder at the moment. You've got no wingers, which is interesting. Then you got Evans and you got Luke Jeffcott returning up front as the only strikers. So when I look at what the club needs in the summer transfer window, this is what I think they need if they want to appoint Cameron Toshack. I believe they first of all need another goalkeeper. Whether you go with, I think you go for an all-rounder. I think with so many adaptable formations under Cameron Toshack, and I think with the ability to switch it up against different opposition, whether you go for it against the lower teams, you be a bit more frustrating against the higher teams, the top end teams. I think you need an all-rounder in that situation. So you need someone who can play both the traditional goalkeeper and a sweeper keeper. That's who I think you need. You need an all-rounder who can do both jobs. Then, in my opinion, you need a backup right back. Whether it's on loan, whether it's a young permanent like we did with the returning Tom Nixon, and there's plenty of options out there, don't get me wrong. And I think you need, obviously, at least two left backs. And I think in terms of the types of fullbacks for the backup right back and the two left backs, I think you need attack-minded fullbacks. I think you need almost wing backs in a back four. You need people who are going to overlap, underlap, they're going to have the pace down the channels, provide extra options in transition, and you need people that are also going to be back against the wall, doing the defensive duties, strong, physical, nasty. You need a bit of an all-rounder type attacking fullbacks, or almost like wing-backs almost. So that's what I would look for in those positions. I would also say another centre-back as well, or a no-nonsense central defender. Someone who can win set pieces, rely on set pieces, be great building up the play in transition from defence to attack. And for me, someone who can do the like I said, someone who can do the no nonsense, someone who can really get stuck in. In terms of the midfield, like I said, deep lying playmaker, and this is what I picked up from Analytics FC about Jason Punchin in the Pathos squad at the time when Toshack was manager / head coach. Punchin was the deep line playmaker in that role, and the stats kind of told itself in that particular position. You saw that he was very much someone who could create from deep positions. He could create those line-breaking passes. He was a dominating, dictating midfielder from those deep positions. I think you need someone like that. I think Wildy's got the potential to be that. I think Bryn Morris has got the potential to be that, even at that later age. But again, I think you need one or two central midfielders, and I think at least one of them, maybe even three, and at least one of them needs to be a deep line playmaker. And I think Toshack, if he comes into Newport, will look at Puncheon, look at what he did, and think, right, who's out there in Newport's budget range, scouting range, whatever, and think, right, who's out there that can do just as good, if not better, in a similar type of role? That and again, Toshack's a very data-driven manager, so you've got the opportunity to do that if the new chairman, Hugh Jenkins, backs him with whatever he needs. And I think he'll do that. And I hope he does that anyway, from a neutral perspective. In terms of elsewhere on the pitch as well, you need an attacking midfielder, or maybe even two. You need a playmaker in that advanced role who can break between the lines, run off the shoulder when the striker's in a deeper position, someone who can break the lines, press off the shoulder, and someone who's very direct, very dangerous in 1v1 situations. Again, that's one main positive from an analytical perspective of Toshack's style of play sometimes. I think you have to be very, very direct, very, very dangerous, especially in 1v1 situations. And I think you need an attacking midfielder that can do that. Same with the wingers. You need at least one winger either side, probably another one either side as well, or someone who's adaptable for both sides regardless. I think you need two or three, maybe even four that are adaptable either side regardless. Quick, pacey, full of energy, direct, dangerous. 1v1's very dangerous as well in those situations. So again, it follows the same principle as the advanced playmaker and the attacking midfield role. And then you need, in my opinion, one more striker potentially, and someone who is a real pressing forward. Press off the shoulder, play off the shoulder of the last defender, and really make those runs in behind. Because one thing I think a Toshack team does well in the attack is runs in behind. And I think that's something that could really hoe down in on with Jeffcott, with Will Evans. And I think someone who could come in and help them do that as well, either experienced or a young protege, someone who can come in either on loan or permanently as a young age, who can work his way into being the first team striker long term. Again, after you got the opportunity to do that with him. So that's what I think Newport County need. Overall, I would say that Toshack, if I had to say it right now, I think Toshack would be the right appointment in my opinion. For me, he's the right appointment, and I think his tactics, I think his style of play, I think it would be a switch up from the formation that Coughlin played last season, but for the majority of the time. But I think Toshack's a great young coach, a great young manager in the making, and I think that his style of play, his adaptability, the way he can change it up and switch it up against teams from top to bottom in the table, I think he's got the real opportunity to really create a nice dynamic. And I think that this kind of head coach or this kind of manager matches the change in direction that Hugh Jenkins is looking for. And I think that Newport should be going all out for this guy. I have faith that he can do well as long as the Newport board back him with whatever he needs to succeed at that football club and get them back to where they were under Michael Flynn, and that was fighting to get into League One via the playoffs. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That is the latest edition of Football League Weekly at full time. Make sure you do like, comment, subscribe, and for now, I'm the CHALL. Ta-ra for now. Mean that bash to you.